Somebody was letting go and I can't have my way.
Welcome back to the Acoustic Shoppe Knows People.
I am so glad that Jason's not here, aren't you?
This is actually going to be probably the most
I won't be
comfortable.
Actually, half the podcast, unlike our regular life, half the podcast he sits there silently, but in real life he interrupts us a lot. So it's going to be it's going to be pleasant. John, tell us.
We have Rob and Kevin here, and they're working with Adam Hall, who is the distributor for Maton Guitars, and we are glad to have him. We've been talking about Maton Guitars and all the cool stuff, so it's good to have them in here. We're going to talk to them about things, Jeremy, because the Acoustic Shoppe knows.
Oh, that's part of this podcast, is to have some kind of information that we can share with people. So yes, we will be talking about things in this podcast, unlike other podcasts you may listen to. But welcome to the show, guys. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Yeah.
We'll try to know a few things here.
Yeah, you should always try to know a few things. It's always a good idea.
Or embellish where needed.
So you guys, we're getting to know each other through Maton Guitars, but Adam Hall is more than that, correct? And that's what you guys are working with, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam Hall's a large company in Germany that manufactures and designs and distributes event technology. So it'd be speakers that you would hear or see at a concert or at a club. It would be the cable protectors that you drive over with a car, like the yellow and black cable protectors. It would be stands like these.
Not these ones. These ones keep falling, by the way.
Yeah, these aren't Adam.
These are not the ones you guys
But
use.
we may have a line to some new stands and some cable covers.
I think we know somebody. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
We got a guy.
it's basically pro audio kind of based.
Very, very cool.
Products as well.
So what brings in Maton then? How did you guys get involved with that?
Well, first we distributed Hofner for 27 years. I'm sorry, I've been with Hofner for 27 years. Adam Hall's distributed Hofner for 13 years now, and they also have a few other guitar-based brands. And Maton was just a natural fit. It's a very similar story to Hofner. When I started at Hofner, nobody really knew that brand because it's a German brand in America. So had to build it up here. And I guess we had that experience to do that with Hofner. So Maton was a similar story with Australia.
And if you knew about Hofner, if you're a Beatles fan or
I was gonna say,
fan, it was very difficult to find a Hofner bass.
Yeah.
Well, for Hofner, those who don't know it know it. They just don't know that they don't know
Right.
it.
You know, yeah.
If you know the bass, the violin-shaped bass, that was Hofner.
Yeah, that's right.
And where did that company actually get its start?
It started with violins in 1887.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Wow.
his name is Karl Hofner, and then his son Walter and Joseph invented the violin bass. I think it was Walter, if I'm not mistaken, in 1956. Paul McCartney bought his first one in 1960. Well, actually, it's funny because Paul McCartney in the Beatles' early days was a guitar player, and he borrowed Stu Sutcliffe's bass, which happened to be a Hofner, like a big body Hofner. And then John Lennon and George Harrison were playing Hofner guitars. And then Paul McCartney went to a store in England, being a lefty. It's a violin shape, which is very symmetrical.
Yes.
So it was a natural fit. So he custom ordered a lefty.
So it was. I was going to ask you that. Was it an actual
Yeah.
lefty,
Yeah.
or was it just a flip?
No, it was a custom lefty. But if you look at the old pictures with the right-handed Stu Sutcliffe, it looked like a big jazz body. He flipped it over. And then with the John Lennon guitar, he flipped it over. Single cutaway, but the violin was naturally a cool-looking guitar left-handed. So,
Yeah.
But all the Beatles played Hofner. Paul McCartney's the most famous one for it, and he still plays it today.
It's a pretty good group to have an endorsement with.
Yeah.
Got a little attention
A
for your
little bit
brand.
of staying power.
Yeah.
In that one. Yeah.
I don't even know who these bugs you speak of are. What are you talking?
That's the type of one you look for before they hit it big. You know, you get in with these guys, and then
Well, can you imagine being that record company that turned them down?
yeah. I'm sure they can never live that down.
I guarantee you there's a whole bunch of those, though, throughout the history of every record producer and every label. And then there's the ones that they spent a whole bunch of money and went,
And I'm
happy here.
I'm not going to say I love the Beatles, and I'm so in awe of like their songwriting and especially their producing. I'm not a huge buff of the history of them, but there was a drummer that dropped out right before they hit it big,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I have a poster because I worked with that guy.
So
on Hofner.
that's the
Pete
same
Best.
thing. Yeah,
Pete
that-
Best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to pass up on the band as a record label or to drop out of the band as the drummer.
Yeah.
I have one of those stories with business, but we
Okay.
won't talk about it.
Well, that's what we're here for, right?
Hey, what do you mean you're not
Yeah.
going to?
And then you're bagging groceries and you're listening to.
I was asked to be an early investor in Apple, and I said, I don't get this.
I don't get it.
Pat and
Yeah,
Act, I
Pat-
wasn't anything.
Why is
Amazon,
Apple
I don't
having
know.
anything to do with electronics? I don't even. This is a grocery thing.
I could have been out on Amazon Amazon. I'm like, a river? Like, I don't understand.
even
How are we going to make
understand.
money on this?
I just ran into somebody that bought Bitcoin like for $700 or whatever, and
man.
then he forgot about it and he just pulled it out and it's worth like $80,000 right now or something.
Yeah.
But it was like $700 worth. He totally forgot about it.
No, wouldn't that be nice?
You know, beyond the violin bass, there's the club bass, very popular, and the sound is great. And a lot of players are using it now.
That didn't get as famous, but you've heard of the band Paul Revere and the Raiders?
Yeah. Mhm.
They were also on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yes.
He played the club bass. It was like a single cutaway, like a Les Paul looking. It was the same short scale. By the way, the Hofners sound like an upright bass because it's a short scale, flat wound string, so it kind of goes putt, putt, putt.
and hollow body.
Yeah, exactly. So the club bass was a similar one, but just different body shape. In fact, what happened is the guitars that George and John played were club guitars, and they had extra bodies, and so they put the Beatle bass neck on that club guitar body, and that became the club bass.
Wow.
So Paul Revere and the Raiders was the first famous band, and then the Talking Heads, Tina Weymouth, played one as well. So those were sort of the earlier club bass players. But again,
So
Paul
what-
McCartney gets the credit for the violin bass.
So what's the transition? You said they were a violin company.
I
Where
was
did
gonna
they
ask, did they
decide?
continue to
was
build
it
violins after
acoustic
this?
stuff, or was this
Nin-
more of an electric thing that they decided to jump into?
1920s, they started building nylon string guitars, and then in the I think the 40s, they started building steel string acoustics and electric guitars, arch tops, and so on. And then basses kind of started. So
And they still make classical guitars today and electric guitars.
Do they still make violins, or did that
oh
kind
yeah,
of go to...
no, it's
Yeah.
in fact if you go to Hofner in Germany,
Excuse
you
me.
will see 1/3 of the factory is violins, cellos, double basses, violas. Another third of the factory is bows. Believe it or not, some of the bows are like tens of thousands of dollars, and they're bending them over a flame by hand. And then the other third is guitars. And then out of the guitar production, probably half of it is nylon string guitars that nobody knows Hofner makes. But in Europe, it's very popular. They make some great nylon string guitars. And then, again, about a third of the business is violin basses. But in America, everybody only thinks it's violin basses, has no idea about the other part of the business.
You're correct. I would agree with that because you talk to most people. That's if they know what Hofner is. That's the first thing, and really mainly only thing that a lot of people really, unless you're in that world a lot heavier. So
Yeah.
it's pretty wild. You know what I find interesting about what you just said though is the nylon string world. In the U.S., it's funny, we kind of discount it. There's not a whole lot of brands of this, but when I talk to folks in Europe and other countries, the nylon string is like a huge portion of the business to the point of, just so you know, and nobody probably is going to care, but I remember Eastman came out with a nylon string guitar, and it was really, really great. It sounded great. It was a great affordable price, but they decided that because what they were used to, they said there was way too much of that in the crowded space that they decided to discontinue doing nylon string guitars. I don't think there's that crowded of a space here.
They weren't talking
There isn't.
in the U.S. at all, but yet I'm assuming, by the way they talk, and sounds by the way you're talking, there's a huge market for that.
Well, I can kind of tell you why. So when I started playing guitar, I was 13, and I wanted to learn rock music with strumming chords. Right before my time, the teachers forced the student to basically learn the proper technique of classical. That still sort of exists in Europe.
Is it?
Yeah, but it's changing. In fact, I can tell you that I think nylon strings, I would say, are declining in Europe, and steel strings are becoming more popular. But it's way behind America. And I think in America it started 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
And now in Germany it's just starting where steel strings, people are now saying, oh, okay, you can start on a steel string.
Yeah.
I think it is funny that you're right. I still get grandparents and older people that were playing guitar in the 70s, and they come in and they insist that the kids now should be starting with a nylon string guitar. Now, the idea of it, I think, is a little bit different because I think you're probably right. In Europe, people think a little bit more of the classical technique and the history and the technique side of it, where I think a lot of folks around here go, well, all those steel string guitars are so hard to play.
Gonna
You
hurt their
should
fingers.
start with a nylon string. And I think
There's-
that world's changed. You
Yeah.
know?
There's part of that. Although a classical guitar, the action's higher than.
Yeah.
I would have
than
quit if
typical-
I
I
had
think
this.
it's harder, and the neck is kind of
agree.
chunky.
I
and
would've
wider.
Wide.
Yeah.
They don't
I-
stay in
flat.
tune at first, right?
Yeah.
You have to tune them about 38 times first because the strings are stretching.
Yeah.
Especially brand new.
And then
Yeah.
the action's high. But
Yep.
it is, the advantage is, as we know, is if you're playing an F chord or something, your finger isn't hurt. You don't have that indentation from the nylon string. But on the bad side, or the con side, I would say, is the action's high and they don't stay in tune. Plus, they don't really sound like a folk or a rock sound, right?
Yep.
So for me at 13, I wanted to sound like the records or whatever I was listening to. And it wouldn't have gotten that from a nylon string. I wasn't listening to that
You
music.
people at home,
Yeah.
listen to this. This is one of my things for you're buying a new guitar and you're getting it for a kid or something like that. Recognize it's not about what you think it's supposed to sound like. It's what that person thinks it's going to sound like. I talk about that a lot with especially parents that are bringing in their kids for the first one. They all have that idea. Well, they should learn to do this. And
Or
they
they say,
should learn
what's
to
the
do this."
easiest instrument to start them on? I know they want to play guitar, but what should I start them? Well, if they want to play guitar, then guitar is the one
You
they
should start 'em on guitar,
If
yeah.
they want to play banjo, start them on banjo.
And then it even comes further into, I want to play guitar, but everybody tells me I need a nylon string guitar to start with. I said, what kind of music are you listening to?
Right.
If you're listening to music that's played on a nylon string, yes, you should get a nylon
Exactly.
string guitar.
Yeah.
That's what your goal is. Get that. But the fact is, if it doesn't sound like what you want it to sound like, we'd all give up on
Yeah.
it. We absolutely would.
Yeah.
And I think it also changed, the marketplace changed a ton too, because it's a lot easier when you got started, when I got started, those inexpensive steel string guitars were a lot harder to play.
True.
not very
And it's
good
not that
quality.
way anymore. You can find
Oh, yeah.
a fantastic guitar.
It's incredible.
Extremely
Yeah.
inexpensive. It may not sound as good as some of the higher end ones, but as far as playability, you can get a fairly playable guitar very inexpensive.
What we
these
probably
days.
started
This
with,
is true.
what we considered a slide guitar today.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
action
yeah.
went super high.
Yeah.
And then you
A
the
K
nut-
or
the nut
something.
cut real
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
Yep. You had to earn your calluses.
Yeah.
I've said that a bunch. Is these guys, those early guitars 30 years ago were rough. They were really, really rough.
Your customers are lucky because every guitar I played in your store is set up well. And a lot of that's you guys, but also like new guitars in general. They have a standard
Absolutely.
spec now. Back, like speaking of Hofner, back in the day, when they made a Paul McCartney violin bass, it was just a violin shape called a 500/1. They didn't even have a name for it. The German code was 501 meant violin, 502 meant club, 505 meant like a 335 style. But they didn't have such scrutinized in specs. It was just a violin bass. And then they would have different pickups and different buckets. And sometimes they'd go, oh, put these on this, put these tuners on this.
Yeah.
And now people will try to date
Usually,
them
yeah.
and they call me, what year is this made? And you kind of have to date it by the parts and by, because there was also no serial numbers, believe it or not, put on the instruments back then. So the records were just, there was no computers and internet.
Sure.
So they did the best
Absolutely.
they could with the tools.
Well, that
they had.
happened.
It always had a logo or no?
Yeah, it always had a logo,
Okay.
a Hofner logo. Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened with almost every brand, though. I mean, to be honest,
Except Martin. They seem to,
no, well-
once they got established.
you're right
as-
with serial numbers and all that. But I will say, every manufacturer
serial numbers
went
and model
through-
numbers they kind of figured out and put a lot of thought into under like
but
some of the
parts
competitors. Yeah.
is what I'm talking about. Like, and Martin was probably better than most, but they would move on from a part like a tuner. There's not a whole lot of parts that were not made by that particular company. But Gibson was definitely in this. We ran out. We're out of these.
What
So
do we
what
got
do
in
we
the
do?
back?
Well, there's another set of these over here. Why don't you just move those over to that one? And
Yeah.
that was very common. The other one that I was thinking of, it's not worth it anyway. I know. I
Think
lost
about the
it.
numbering system like Hofner had 501, Martin had D18, D28. It's very similar.
Yep.
But look at Gibson, Hummingbird, Dove. Like it is easy to remember those
What do you
names.
guys
right?
want to do this year for a serial number? I don't know. Let's say like your shoe size and then whatever the eclipse, what date the eclipse happened on, and like they would just make up a different thing and they'd run it for like 10 years and say, let's change the whole serial number system.
Yeah.
The first
Let's
number
confuse the
with
market
the
a little
seventh
bit.
number.
I think they
and
really
the-
wanted to make it like a mystery, like an escape room where you had to find out what date this guitar is. You have to do all kinds of research and some crazy stuff just to figure out the year. So
For those of you who do not know this already, Martin, and there's a few companies that did this, sequential serial numbers. And that's
regardless
what-
of model, regardless of
anything. If it's
specs.
between this serial number and this serial number, that's what fits
was
this
made that
year.
year.
And then they did their models. Gibson, good luck. If you think you know the system,
Yeah.
you don't. And that's
Yeah.
it. That's it. I always loved George Gruen's book on dating ones. You got the brands that they did something that they figured out how to do it, and whether it's an electric or an acoustic. And then all of a sudden, Gibson sections like this wide. It's like, if it has this tuner plus white binding plus this, it
and the serial
might
number is in this
be-
location.
Yeah.
It might be this.
Yeah.
It's still not right. Anyway,
It's not.
let's.
So,
You can find several documents online with different sequential numbers and the
But
explanations.
But just the naming of guitar models is interesting, where you have a number, like a D number or whatever, which I guess if an American started Martin, they would just call it a dreadnought,
Yes.
right? But Martin did D18 or D28, D35, D41, all that stuff.
Theirs was in styles. So
Yeah.
right, your 28 meant that it was going to be rosewood back and sides with a spruce top, and these were the styles. And whether it was a triple O, a single O, any of that, that's a O28, whatever happens to be, and they kept that all the way through. But you're right, different brands have different ways of doing it, and it's going to be interesting as we kind of continue to grow. I mean, it'll be like the car industry where they recognize.
that's what I was gonna say. It sounds like a car where you have to come up with a new Acura or Eclipse.
Yeah.
You know, you have to come up with a new name every model you come up with, rather than have this.
Well,
Yeah.
or then you
System.
get to where like Dodge did is like we're out of car names again. Let's bring back the Charger. The Charger. That's one we'll do that one again.
Yeah.
That'll be
I'm
great.
waiting for the Gremlin to come back around. But
But imagine if the Charger was called a C18 0056.
Yeah.
You wouldn't remember that, right? But you
Yeah.
remember a Charger. You know?
You're right.
that's true.
Wait
So,
for the
so I don't know which
Gremlin.
one's a better system.
Yeah.
But that brings us to Maton, and that's the correct way to say it, right?
Maton, yeah.
Maton. How did you come across them, and then some of the history of them? Obviously, as an Australian brand, they're not as well known in the U.S., but obviously in the more boutique guitar world, they're starting to get a really good
Yeah.
word out there. But some of the history, I think, is still lost. I know when I went to the website, and Jason actually shared that with me, and seeing kind of that nice timeline of the history, I didn't realize how far back it went, or how many celebrities through the years have chosen that guitar.
Yeah, they started in 1946 by a guy named Bill May. Started in his garage making a jazz guitar, and that guitar still sits at the Maton Museum at the headquarters in Melbourne, Australia. The family still runs the business. The daughter's name is Linda. In fact, the Ellie Mae money guitar is Linda May. It's a tribute to her. So she still runs the company. I think she's late 70s. Her and her husband still run Maton. They've only ever produced in Australia. Lots of history. Every band from Australia grew up playing on Maton. Every little lady in Australia, if you say the name Maton, they know what it is. In America, it is getting more popular here because a lot of American artists are playing them as well as Australian artists are getting popular here. Tom Emanuel for acoustic guitar is sort of the godfather here, I guess you'd call it now, or he's on often the covers of magazines and selling out 2,500 seaters just playing guitar. And he's been playing a Maton since he was 4, so that helps us a lot. Keith Urban has been playing Maton since he was 4. Lots of fingerstyle players. In fact, every time I go learn a song and go on YouTube, and if it's a fingerstyle song, there's some kid on YouTube playing a Maton. And go, oh, there's another one. You know?
There you go. And so it is definitely a growing group of people getting to know it here in the States, and probably mostly brought in by players who, it sounds like, what you're saying is they grew up doing it, so it's time to introduce this. And there's a,
But
I think there's a lot
they even
of
had Elvis back in the day.
That is
So
true.
Yeah.
They were known in America, but they just weren't quite as prevalent as they were in Australia.
Yeah, Australia's far away, so there really wasn't a distribution center here in America. So you had to get the guitar in Australia or another country. Most of the business ships to Australia what they make. So it was really hard to get unless you went on that long plane ride and brought one back.
I actually had a customer today came into me and it's like, hey, you guys had some guys in there and you guys were talking with them. Are they from a guitar company? And I said, yeah, we're doing Maton guitars. Are those from Australia? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I didn't think you could get those guitars here. I thought that was the only way you could get them is to go to Australia and get those. I said, well, we're fixing that.
Yeah.
It used to be until the Acoustic Shoppe got involved.
Well, that's how I found them. Is my history with Hofner goes back 27 years. And I was the guy that built Hofner for the American market. I started with 4 dealers, and nobody wanted to look at the guitars, or nobody knew anything. So we developed jazz guitars and semi-hollow guitars, and developed other basses, and I developed artists, and kind of built the brand here in America. And then Maton approached us because we had a similar challenge. We had a great name with great history, great quality instrument. The story was really the same. In fact, I didn't hear of Maton when they approached me. I thought I knew everything about every brand. I had no idea what it was. And then I started researching, like you guys did. Go, oh, this is really cool. Elvis had one. George Harrison had one. Peter Frampton plays one now, and Eric Johnson and all these guys. So we're kind of getting out of the fingers, not getting out, but we're branching out of the fingerstyle only. So there's a lot of just, like pop rock type stars playing them as well now because they're hearing the pickup system and seeing the quality. But Maton approached us just because of what we did with Hofner. And it was a very similar story. They wanted to expose a brand that had all this history and do it the right way into the American market. And I guess we proved it with Hofner, so that's why we got approached.
And it's not like it's not a huge name in Australia. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. They're limiting how much they can bring to the U.S. It's not like, hey, we got too many guitars here. Let's go ahead and sell them to the U.S. This is more like, I think they should also be known here, but even still, it's a limited amount of numbers coming into the States, right?
Yeah, and it's not mass produced either. It's a big shop, but it's not huge, and they make a lot of guitars worldwide, but that is a very small number compared to other brands.
There's other companies that are out there that sell more in one day than we produce in 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of stores that sell a lot more than we do.
So they
in a year,
earlier.
in a day.
In a minute.
Yeah, they maintain quality that way, and maybe maintain the story.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
That's a balance you have to come up with is
Yeah.
expanding but not losing that quality and that control over how the product's being built and presented. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that interested us. And I know John's first introduction, I know you had heard about him before, but
I had
first
played a
physical
few
introduction
guitars, yeah.
was at the Fretboard Summit. Mm-hmm. And I think you had 2 years ago played one and really enjoyed it. But then this last year when you were going around with your Monopoly money choosing the guitars you were going to purchase.
Yeah.
Which I think that was a legally binding contract and we should
I
have that
thought
guitar
so,
now.
but I don't have it, and I think it's a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
Anybody hasn't
Do
watched that?
something about that? Or we got to talk.
John and
to
JP
fix this
Cormier
whole-
went
That
on this,
contract was as good as the
shopping
paper it was
spree.
printed on.
Who do I got to talk to?
I
get
also
my
own
guitar
Park
I
Place.
paid?
I own Park Place Hotel.
Boardwalk.
The Boardwalk.
Maybe the IRS counterfeit program.
I've also been to jail numerous times.
No, I'm waiting on my guitar.
But that's the first time you really got a chance. And I think it was the pickup system that really you went in the room and said, I have got to try this pickup system.
Well, I loved the pickup system. Actually, it was kind of the opposite side of that. I knew they were great guitars. We played them quite a bit. I played them at the NAMM show. You guys had been there a few times, and I liked them. The pickup system was world renowned anyway, but you'd come up with another version of it by the time we did this, and then the new master builds took the guitars to a whole nother level, even further than what they were. So now we had a 2 combination deal where the pickup system was absolutely incredible, plus the guitars themselves were at a whole nother level, even further. Because we're pretty spoiled here. We got some pretty high-end guitars in here. And the Standard Series, this is not a knock on them, but they're Standard Series guitars. They're they have their own version, their own sounds. But we're starting to see all these crazy, highly figured woods and upper end boutique stuff. And now you took that to that level, plus the pickup systems and the body shapes and the sounds that we already kind of love. So that's why I kind of got excited.
That's one thing
Yeah.
Maton's been focusing on is they've just keep improving the acoustic sound of the instruments. It's just as important, if not more important, than the pickup. If we just live off the pickup, it's a little dangerous, to be honest with you. So, you have to make a guitar that people would want to play acoustically as well.
Well, we talked about a little bit in one of the videos we did the evolution of the acoustic guitar pickup. And there was a time period when who really kind of brought it to everybody's attention was Ovation, which ended up turning into Takamine. And those pickups were the first active electronics that sounded as guitar-like. Now, again, our standard has come a long way.
Listen back to it now. It's not,
It's like it's like going back and watching Jurassic Park again. It's
Yeah.
like,
That's
man, when that
CGI.
came out, that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And now you look back and go, how did I think that was real?
Yeah,
Watch a live concert
Yeah.
from the 80s and go, ooh.
Yeah, but live sound in general has improved over sound quality over the years. So.
But we're talking about our pickup systems and how they kind of continue to grow. There was a time period when people were ripping the pickup systems out of those guitars because they didn't like them acoustically and putting them into their higher end acoustic guitars and vice versa. And I think that's where the disconnect is kind of sort of stayed there. Pickup systems have come a long ways and they continue to get better and better. But I I don't know. I think we're real close with this, with the Maton system right now. But I don't think most people recognize a place where they're like, this is the sound I've been looking for out of a pickup. This is everything, especially as we continue to see acoustic guitars themselves continue to get better sounding and more detailed and clarity and all that kind of stuff. I don't know that as much attention has been paid to in the pickups. I may be wrong on that.
I think that may be why the
modeling
modeling systems and stuff like that are being very popular, where people can do the IR response that can emulate the sound of a microphone regardless of the pickup. It was kind of like, all right, if they're not going to do it, we're going to come up with another piece of gear that can recreate that acoustic sound. And they have some really cool devices. We sell a bunch of them that do an excellent job with that. But this is something you guys have been working on for a while, to just kind of keep getting that acoustic tone as much as possible, blending the microphone to get some of the response out of it that you're not getting out of a standard.
Yeah, a piezo, it gets the mid-range and it gets the attack and all the playing, all your playing movements and that. But there's something missing there, and it's the higher end, the higher registers, the higher frequencies. And the microphone in there gets the higher frequencies, resonance off the top, and fills that sound out. And you can mix between the two to dial in the
There's
sound.
something about playing different guitars too. Like if you hand me a telly or hand you a telly, you're probably going to play a chicken pick and lick or whatever. Hand you a Strat, you're going to do something. And hand a big jazz guitar, you're going to play a 13th chord or something. And with an acoustic, you just play differently. So I agree, the modelers are fantastic and they sound incredible, like, for what they do. But there's something about playing a different size guitar or a different neck that makes you play differently as well.
Absolutely. But also it goes back to what we were just talking about, which is I think it's been this tough battle for guitar companies to find pickup systems that are matching the same equilibrium. And for you guys, the pickup system was absolutely incredible, and the acoustic sound was great. But it seems like they've been stepping it even further and want to narrow that gap between what was already a great sounding pickup. And excuse me, this is not on my normal side.
Just don't
right
gesture,
now.
John.
I can't do any gestures. But this is a problem that a lot of guitar companies have, which is just the fight of pickups. You guys had the opposite fight of, it's like, we can't get our pickups to sound as good as our guitars. Well, you guys are like, well, we'd like to get our guitars to sound almost as good as what the pickups are. Yeah. And I think that's going to be great for this world right now, where everybody's trying to find the perfect blend of the two things, because now we're not just going, I buy this one to plug it in and I buy this guitar to not plug it in, those kind of things.
It is funny you say that, because the old technology, it didn't matter if it was a thin guitar or a deep guitar, it quacked the same, sounded the same. With the Maton pickup, if you try all of your different models in your store and you plug it in, you're going to hear the tone of the wood, even without the microphone on, just with the piezo. The rosewood sounds different than the Queensland maple, it sounds different than the blackwood. That was kind of new for me, because I'm used to, a piezo pickup sounding the same on any instrument.
That's an argument I've had with a lot of customers throughout the years. Is like, well, which one's going to sound best plugged in? And it's like, if that's your main concern, it doesn't matter. I'm here to tell you that a $20,000 guitar with that pickup sounds almost identical to an $800 guitar with that pickup.
Yeah.
They're almost identical.
Yeah.
There's some variants. I'm not going to say there's none, but there isn't. And you're right. I think it's the way they built us, the 6 different piezos in there, and the way that they're mounted up against it. Also putting that body as part of the
transmission and the
yes, the equation. That's what I was looking for. It's part of the entire system. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You can, I only know one successful case where somebody took a Maton pickup and put them into their regular guitar, so I won't recommend trying it at home. It's made for the Maton, it's built for the Maton, the bracing, the support systems inside. So again, I know of one person that says they got it to work, but it's not really
you might as well buy a Maton.
Yeah.
At that point, but so we're excited to have them in here, and like John said, the new series was really excited because it does have some more of the exotic wood looks to it. I know that Tommy's been playing one of your guitars for years, that you got a signature model, the standard one that's out. Tell us a little bit about the relationship with Tommy, because he's another one of those kind of great gets, maybe he's not quite as famous as the Beatles, but he's in the guitar,
close.
in the guitar, especially in this day of social media stuff, he's great at getting online and just showing off, his abilities. Got a huge following online, so that's a really good endorsement of the brand. I'm sure having his signature model has been successful.
Oh, it's great. He kind of leads the fingerstyle world. I know you have your bluegrass guys out there too. I guess the Tony Rices in the past and so on. Tommy's sort of like that of the fingerstyle world, and inspires a lot of younger fingerstyle players. In fact, Tommy often was an advocate where he'd invite young children to his concert that are great players and get them up on stage, like 12-year-old kids that are just amazing, and kind of inspired a lot of that fingerstyle playing. So he's great for the fingerstyle world and just for the acoustic guitar.
And had he been working directly with you guys as a company for a long time, or was it he was just a guy that played your instruments and loved them, and the relationship as far as like partnering is more of a recent?
I don't know when the partnership officially started, but him and his brother Phil started when they were 4 years old. And I don't have it with me, but there's a picture of them. They were playing a Master Sound electric guitar, was Tommy's first guitar, and that's also in the Maton Museum with that same 1946 Bill May guitar with the headstock. But so Tommy comes and visits that guitar because it's in our museum or in our factory.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know when the official relationship started, but he's been playing the guitars most of his career. There was a little time where he was playing another guitar on stage because of the pickup system, and he came to Maton and said, "You need to make this guitar sound like my other one, but even better," and that's where the development started. I can't tell you the official year when he started, but he's had a long association with Maton.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's a great one because, one, we all know, certified guitar player. Chet says so. So it's obviously backed up. He's a fabulous one. But he also supports a lot of guitar players. And I think that is cool. And I think that comes from the certified guitar player program. I mean, that was Chet's idea there of being able to explain, yes, I'm a great guitar player, and everybody knew Chet was a great guitar player. There was there's no way to combat that. You go, no, ends up he's not.
I don't know if he was really
Highly overrated.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but he did every style. But he started to recognize those who weren't, and help, I think, elevate the guitar world. Because it was one of those situations. I think when Chet was around, a lot of us knew, is before my time, but a lot of guitar players knew, as well as even audience members knew, this is something absolutely special. But most guitar players were just kind of backup guys. They were studio guys, the unsung heroes. You had the stars, but the real studio top-notch guitar players are the ones that are kind of the unsung heroes of guitar.
Your Steve Cropper, we all know about now, but back then no one. Yeah,
there's so many of those kind, and
Jimmy
I think
Bryant, some of those studio guys are a little over.
Yeah.
I like the fact that now I think Tommy's continuing that, because I watch a ton of videos. He's been putting out all these different albums. Like he brought Jerry Douglas in. He did an almost semi-bluegrass album with a lot of flat pickers in there, and brought in a bunch of
Molly Tuttle's on
Molly,
his records.
yeah.
Yep.
Him and Trey Hensley played together a bunch.
Play a lot,
Yep.
and you got all these great players, and I think he's helping to elevate guitar players, because again,
And I think he's just having fun. Like, it's every time I see him on these, he just likes to play with other really good guitar players and challenge himself. And I think that's why he's also so successful, is people just see it as having fun playing guitar, and he's always smiling and laughing and
He's
enjoying
sincere,
it.
and he's I got tickets for a dealer and his daughter in another state, and they went to see the concert and met the daughter before the show with the dealer, the father. And he went out. She had a very strange name. I don't remember what it is. But he went on stage, played for 3 hours or whatever, came back, and he saw the daughter and goes, "Hey," and whatever her name was, let's just say it's Lucinda. "Hey, Lucinda, what'd you think?" And the dad couldn't even believe that he remembered her name, because he met her for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Went up on stage and played all these crazy songs, and he came off and called her by her name.
I love it.
Great memory.
I find that, I guess I can't quit the idea of somebody who's so guitar forward, because I do think these master musicians, whether it's mandolin or bass or whatever it ends up being, I think it's so hard for average fans to really understand how great some of these players are, and I think that's what I've been enjoying with Tommy is he's helping everybody because it's hard to, again, just like Chet, it's hard to to say no, he's not all that great. Anybody that listens to guitar music, listen to him play for just a little, because he's a great showman as well as a great guitar player. It's hard for an average person to go, no, ends up, I don't think that's all that great. They automatically recognize it. So he almost feels like it's his mission to elevate those, to make everybody else understand, no, these are really incredible musicians, and you may not know them. And anyway.
And it's very easy to listen to if you're not a musician, right? His music. But if you're a musician, your jaw will drop to the floor. Yeah. That's hard to do, right?
We should get you
It is
to a
really
Tommy
hard.
show, because I think he's going to remember your names too.
I don't think so. I have actually gone to 2 Tommy shows I've been to, and both times just absolutely knocked out. I've always liked his playing. It was another level after seeing it live. It is have you got to go out and see a live show yet? It's a whole nother level, because he's doing things that all us guitar nerds are going, what? Why'd you do that? How?
How'd you do that?
What's going on there?
And he's smiling and dancing. Yeah, it's cool.
Effortless.
What's the matter with you? I don't like it.
So
Anyway.
that's exciting, having his models. The new series of guitars. I think it is just a great fit for our shop, and I know that the new series is only going to be available to a couple dealers in the States.
As of right now.
Yeah, 2 dealers.
All right.
You're one of
Yeah.
them.
The standard Tommy model is a really nice guitar, and it does really well in America. But I think this TE Personal, the Master Built TE Personal, is going to catch on.
Yeah.
It's almost identical to his guitar. It's the same spec, same woods, everything, and it's a much better sounding guitar.
So if you buy this guitar, you can play as good as Tommy.
Is that how that works?
guaranteed?
All right.
you're on the road,
Yeah. Like
you're on the
it's
right
not-
path.
You at least know it's not the guitar holding you back at that point. It's probably some other places you need to look. But
Well, it's like that whole entire Masterbuilt series. It again, what we talked about, why it impressed me, it moved it to that next level. The Tommy's been a big giant seller for Maton. It's probably, I would assume, the #1 seller right now.
It is, yeah.
I'd have to assume that. So now we're stepping it up to the next level. He's taking another guitar, obviously working with it. That's really, really cool. I'm beyond excited about it.
Have you guys heard of Joe Robinson? He's now in his 30s, but he's from Australia. When he was 17, he won Australia's Got Talent, took the check, moved to Nashville, and hung out with Tommy because they were friends. Before that, I think Tommy supported him since he was a young kid. But he's doing super well. He lived in Nashville and was Emmylou Harris's guitar player, Rodney Crowell's guitar player.
yeah.
Played with John Jorgensen, played with Robin Ford, played with
that's right,
everybody.
I saw with John.
But we have a signature Joe Robinson model as well. Those are the only 2 signatures right now, is the Joe Robinson and the Tommy. And the Joe's in a unique guitar too.
I believe they're
cool.
starting on a John Chapman model. I don't know.
I'm sure it's somewhere
Yeah.
in the line.
It's a J-Run monster.
Yeah.
It's a pre-production.
I think you have to live in Australia for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
Is that what? Ooh, I have no problem with this, Jeremy. This is sounding better already.
The dingoes may eat your baby. So just be careful.
Yeah, the John Chapman model has John etched in the back.
Yes, it
of
does.
the guitar.
It's going to be really.
It's
really
all the
cool.
ones we're selling at the shop somehow.
Has a belt buckle rash.
So with the Master Built series, is there 5?
Four.
Four models right now, and that seems to be a place that may be expanding in the future, or is it going to stick with 4 for a while?
There's maybe another 1 or 2 coming in the near future.
But it seems like something that the brand is really happy with, and it's going to be like a in parallel focus of the standard series.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Very cool. Yeah, I'm so excited about having you in here, and it's great to have high quality guitars coming from other places, because I do love the spin of that, not just because it's from somewhere else, but the fact that gives a whole different spin to what the guitars sound like, how they play, what the character of what those guitars are. And we live in a world of acoustic guitars that are very traditional based, and everything is kind of based on what we already know. And this is kind of fun for me, is because it's, yes, there's a lot of stuff that we already know, but there's a lot of stuff that we don't know here.
yeah.
what
Tradition we're not familiar with. That it's been around.
And I love that there can be these pockets of fame, we talked about the Loudon guitars. They're just in Europe and Ireland, just like the most famous guitar. Everybody owns one, or they know of them. They want one. Over here, they're a lot less known in the general public. Same thing over in Australia with Maton guitars being like synonymous with guitar, and everybody thinks about Maton when they think of a guitar. And then over here, it's still less familiar. Yeah. So it's fun to kind of discover these personally, but also to help introduce some of our community to these brands that already have made a reputation in their locale of where they're being built, but then they're now just kind of getting introduced, even though it's been a long road, to a new audience, and we're going to get to be a part of that.
That's introduction. Our job. That's our fun with our job. But sometimes it gets frustrating, and sometimes it gets exciting. It just depends how you look at it on the day, because you see the guitars and you know how good they are, and you know other guitars, and you know that there's a missing link between somebody trying one and not trying one. Mm-hmm. And when they try one, the decision might change. So it's
well, Zach, I know we're kind of wrapping it up, but out of curiosity, you said in working with Hofner before that, wasn't that sort of the same sort of fight that you were having, especially here in the States?
So a funny thing is, I started off as product manager in 1998. When I sat down, it's a long story, after I turned down the job and then retook it later, I sat down at my desk and I found they ran an article in 2 different magazines for my job, in music trade magazines, for a Hofner product manager. 3 people applied for my job total. That's it.
Wow.
Because that brand at that time, nobody cared. Believe it or not, Paul McCartney played it, but nobody really got it.
Well, you rose to the top on that one.
But people just think, I had it easy the whole time because Paul McCartney played it, but 3 people applied for my job. It shows you. And I think they ran it for 3 months.
That's your Bitcoin moment right there.
Yeah.
But, it had to get thrown out of stores, make calls, and then, we're not interested. And, you have some cool story and a great quality product, but sometimes the general public only thinks about what they see, like a Coca-Cola thing. But yet RC might taste pretty good, but they don't realize RC might be good, but they only see Coca-Cola.
RC is really good. I don't know how you feel about that. But
it's the Royal Crown. It's the Royal Crown, in case you didn't know.
I call it the Coca-Cola syndrome, because there's a lot of other drinks besides Coca-Cola. Nothing wrong with Coca-Cola, but sometimes you got to try something else, or at least open it.
Yeah. Here's a fun story for you guys, and maybe you guys care, and maybe you don't. This is where Jason gets to edit or not.
Cut this.
Anyway, Eastman, those who follow the channel know we are the largest Eastman dealer, and we started this. It was the first brand we ever had in here. Believe it or not, there was a store that was a dealer here in town. When they came out with the new flat top guitars, they brought the demos in there, and the rep that was here in town brought them to them, and they said, no, we're not interested. We don't want to carry those. In fact, don't even bother bringing them in. We're not interested. Yeah. It ended up making its way over to another store that we ended up being tied in with, and eventually became ours. Now it is very funny story in the end. Missouri is now the most requested state for that brand, from them to get dealers, and it's their number 1 sales, not just because of us, but because of what's been growing in here. And again, that's what's so tough about this. Nobody wanted to give that guitar a shot. It was we'll carry the other stuff that you got, but I'm just not interested. We got enough things like that.
Yeah,
and
I see that all the
there's
time.
a fear there. You're risk averse. A lot of independent dealers are risk averse. You can understand them being that way. You have to be cautious. But you also have to take chances. You have to put yourself out
miss
there.
Opportunities.
Yeah.
Show somebody something they haven't seen before, or they can't get somewhere else.
I agree. And there's also, by the way, for any dealers out there that are afraid to try on some of the stuff, realize you're going to get smacked in the face on some of those too. There are times that that you make the wrong choice, and we've made a couple. I want to say I've made none, Jeremy.
Yeah, you never do. Admit that you make any. But it is also two-way street. We've seen it as a dealer where sometimes brands don't want to take a risk on a dealer because they're like, well, I have this long relationship with the other one. They're not really doing that good, but why take that risk, for this new upstart business? So it's one of those things. I guess that's the theme of this podcast is, be open to taking risks, trying things out, and don't just only know that one brand that you know about or that one title that you have seen all the time. Doesn't mean that's the only well-built instrument out there. Try one out. You may love it, you may not. I think the reason there's so many different manufacturers out there is because they're all confident that they're doing something a little bit better and different than the other guy. So it's worth trying it out to see if that's a good fit personally for this musician. And the cool thing is, most musicians we know have a collection that spans multiple brands and multiple manufacturers because they each do provide something different to your playing and your collection.
By the way, I don't prefer Coca-Cola. I much prefer Pepsi. So I just want to put that out there for all you Coca-Cola drinkers.
You're the new generation they were talking about 30 years ago, John.
I think about your statement, though, as the restaurant. Like, if you go to the biggest restaurant, the most popular restaurant, probably is a chain if it's that big, right? But you go to a thing that looks like a little hole in the wall and you go try the food and you're amazed.
Yeah.
It's the same with guitars. You got to sometimes look at that little
Those
hole in the
small
wall
ones, yeah.
restaurant and try the food.
Do you think younger players are more open to other brands, where older players are more, steeped in the legacy brands?
I think that market is changing. I think it's getting better, but no, I don't. I still think that there's a lot of young people walk in the door that they see their heroes. They see what they and that's not all bad either. We've had discussions recently on brands, and the guitar sounds that you want to hear are probably because that's what you grew up listening to.
Yeah, it has a voicing that you recognize.
I would assume
Yeah.
with Tommy himself. I mean, part of the reason why he loves making guitars so much is this is the sound. This is what he's built him. And obviously the easy one for us to make the comparison for in our industry is the two juggernauts of acoustic guitar, Martin and Taylor. Martin fans don't love Taylors, and Taylor fans don't love Martins. For the most part. There's some. Now, there's crossover, and I'm not trying to be that person. But the fact is, a Martin guy, a lot of them will sit there and go, that doesn't sound like the way a guitar should. Yeah. And I'm like, well, it doesn't sound what you think it should. And why is that? And to me, what I find that to be is, what have you listened to? If you grew up listening to, whatever happens to be the music, Tony Rice, obviously, that's a Martin sound. Or, whatever it happens to be. If you grew up at a later date and you listen to more of what the artists that were playing Taylor, and I really equate this to the worship market, there's been a lot of times with pickup systems. This is a very interesting one for me. A lot of times there's a pickup sound to the Taylor sound. Whether you like it or not, that's your choice. But there's a certain sound, and I think people who have grown up in the worship market and heard that entire guitar sound throughout their entire history, that's the sound they want to hear.
They want their pickup to sound just like that.
Yeah, they've seen players that play well that they're inspired by, and then that tonality is in their conscience,
So I do think there are younger people that are less brand conscious. We're seeing that more often now, where young people do seem to seek out something a little bit different, but in the end, we're always influenced by what we know.
And I think there's different buyers in the market. There's the first time buyers that are wanting to buy that guitar that they've seen their heroes, but there's also some people that have wanted to own nice guitar collections. I think that is a different demographic that we found. They appreciate, regardless of brand, a quality built instrument. They love there's that respect for the artistry of building an instrument, the wood that's selected, and then obviously they want it to sound great and keep up with the other guitars in their collection. But I think they're much less brand loyal, where it has to be my entire collection is only Taylor's, or they're like, ooh, a new small builder that you talked to. The people that do travel around to the hole in wall restaurants just to leave a review of those, they want to experience these different smaller builders. So I think there's different demographics of guitar buyer out there, and I think you can capture them on both ends. People that are just starting out, trying something new, but also these collectors that just appreciate quality.
Now, mandolin players don't do that at all. They just get the same thing over. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, guys, we really appreciate you not only stopping by and doing the podcast, but also thinking about us when doing this new Master Built series, and considering us as one of the two people that would do a really good job of presenting that story. And
not only that, they brought us guitars.
They did.
They delivered.
And you guys do this for every order we do, right?
No.
Is that how that works?
Every one of your orders. Yeah. Other dealers out there, don't expect it. We're not going to drive.
We'll draft them out with your
guitars,
feedback busters.
the UPS, we can't trust that. You guys have to hand deliver these to make sure they get here.
It's because you're near the Ozarks. We just wanted to visit, go on vacation.
Go see Bass Pro and Lambert's.
You guys are a great shop. We love what you do. We love what you do for your customers and the way you represent acoustics and just instruments in general and music.
I'm glad we were able to get this all put together, because it has been fun. The whole day has been fun, just sitting here chatting and talking about guitars and stuff. It's good. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Take me away.
The Acoustic Shoppe knows people. Handmade by Trent Pruitt, Hinkley Hinkleston, and Jason Chapman for the Acoustic Shoppe.
Theme song written and performed by Ofer Koren.
And please remember to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.